Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help. And King of Floors, your vinyl, laminate, and engineered flooring superstore.
Donnie and Dolly title sponsors, King of Floors and Able Auctions. Today's guests, including Jeff Paterson, just moments away. Brought to you by Langley Chrysler. They have the vehicle for your next summer adventure. Whether you need a Jeep for the beach or a Ram for the fam, you can save up to $12,000 online or on land at langleychrysler.com. How are you, Jeff?
Doing well. The weekend is upon us.
Rick has a question he'd like to ask you.
Jeff, how far are the Canucks from Tampa Bay? Just kidding.
How many times
Go ahead, in kilometers?
How many times, Jeff, did Rick ask you?
Oh, stop it.
How much the NHL playoffs prove how far the Canucks have to go? Was
I
it 4 or
asked
5?
Once, Jeff. Once, Jeff.
It's a question that's come up, but I don't think you can pin that all on Rick. I've had that question asked.
Thank you.
In a lot of places by a lot of people.
Thank you.
And I think the playoffs are fairly instructive in that regard. That there is a lot of, let's just leave it at there's a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, it made for a lot of discussion around here. Trust me, Jeff. Hey, does it bother you? That's our poll question today. Does it bother you that the Canucks have delayed revealing the name of their Abbotsford team?
No, not in the least. Look, there are a lot of areas that you can criticize the Vancouver Canucks.
Thank you.
There are a lot of ways to look at what's going to happen on the ice in Abbotsford. I've got questions. I've got concerns about the on-ice product, but for all we know, this is just a scheduling conflict. Like maybe the mayor of Abbotsford wasn't available today and didn't have an opening until Wednesday. I get that it's not ideal. It's a little clunky. They had made the initial announcement of the date, but they hadn't sent out any sort of press release about the when and the where this reveal was going to happen. So it kind of felt like maybe they knew all along that there was going to be a bit of a hiccup here. This much I can tell you, Donnie. I can say this with all certainty. Whenever Abbotsford plays its first game, they will have uniforms, they'll have a logo, they'll have a color scheme, and everybody will be just fine. So, again, there are lots of things to criticize and question the Vancouver Canucks about. A couple of days pushing an announcement like this one. They'll get it done. We'll know soon enough. And on opening night, they'll have uniforms to wear.
Jeff, you've tweeted this out. The Kraken have released their first preseason schedule. It consists of 6 games, including 2 against Vancouver. Do we know when the Canucks are releasing theirs?
Teams do this independently and individually, so I don't know. I think Seattle's the first team out, as far as I can tell, with a full preseason schedule, but we can start to deduce. And if other teams reveal theirs, then maybe we'll pick up a few more clues here. A couple of things about the Seattle reveal.
Yep.
One is they're playing the 3 Western Canadian teams twice each for a total of 6 games, which I am totally on board with. I hope that when the Canucks preseason schedule comes out that it is similar. I don't care so much about the opponents, but 6 is, to me, the right number of games. So often in recent years, they've started with split squad games. They've ended up playing a total of 8. I think that's too many. I think decisions now, when you get to camp, there are really only a handful of decisions for coaching staffs to make. The first couple of games, maybe you want to give your prospects an opportunity to wear a Canuck jersey in game action, get a taste of the big leagues and that kind of stuff. But really, once you get through the first 2 and into the second week, the guys don't want to play every preseason game, the veteran guys. So I think no more than 6. We'll see what happens. And it's kind of cool, I think, too, for Seattle to be spreading their preseason games around the state of Washington. Part of that is building availability, but they say in their release today that Climate Pledge Arena will absolutely be ready for opening night. And this way they get to shop their product around to Spokane, to Everett, to Kent, to the Western Hockey League cities and arenas. And then they sort of save the magic of opening night, the first ever game in that building. I hope that the Canucks are opening night opponents for Seattle in games that matter. We'll see about that. I don't think from Seattle's perspective it matters that much who's there. This has just been a process about getting this thing up and running and with COVID and everything else, it won't matter who the opponent is, but I think it'd be kind of cool if they faced off against the Canucks in the first ever game in franchise history.
Jeff, the buyout window started today, and everybody's thought, oh, no, at 9 o'clock this morning, the Canucks are going to announce something. It just doesn't work like that. And plus, Seattle is really backlogging a lot of decisions for hockey clubs all over the NHL right now. Let's go to the buyout window. Virtanen, Holtby, Eriksson, Beagle, Roussel. There's your usual suspects. Which one would please you if there is going to be a buyout?
All of the above? Can I make that happen?
No, can't do that.
Those would be some serious checks that would have to be written.
Yeah.
You're right, Rick. This isn't a race. Like, there's no prize for being the first team in the NHL to
they don't
exercise
do it like
a buyout. And I think for a lot of teams, buyouts are a last resort. Like, if you could find a trade partner and offload. So if you're a general manager with your salt, I think you're making these phone calls. You're seeing if you can still pull off deals, knowing that you've got the buyout as an option in your back pocket. And so, at some point, some team is going to be the first. If the Canucks were certain on the Jake Virtanen front that, there won't be developments with the off-ice investigations, like, in a perfect world, I guess, perfect world's not the right term, but, if the Canucks could terminate the contract due to conduct issues, that's probably an avenue they would pursue. But we know the legal proceedings take a while, and so, I am expecting that there will be a Virtanen buyout. And what happened with him taking his leave is sort of the last straw. I just think it's time to move on from this player, and based on his age, they can exercise a buyout that'll only cost them a third of the contract. Like, it just makes too much sense on too many levels to me not to move on from Jake Virtanen, but perhaps they're still trying to shop him around the National Hockey League. And then, like, we've discussed this at length, that all of these bloated contracts with 1 year left for Eriksson and Roussel and Beagle, there isn't a whole lot of value there in buyouts in the way of savings. Like, the Holtby one would make more sense, but again, maybe you're looking to see if there's a team out there that wants a veteran backup goaltender with Vezina and a Stanley Cup and all those types of intangibles. Shop them around if you're set on moving off Braden Holtby. Otherwise, maybe Holtby is back to play out the second year of his contract. So we'll see what happens. But I'm certainly anticipating the Canucks will exercise one buyout. I would think it was Jake Virtanen, and then we'll see. But there is a little bit of time here. This isn't a race to get these buyouts done.
I'm just trying to figure out, Jeff, the Canucks blue line next year. I mean, there could be some major shifting here. Hamonic, UFA, Adler, UFA. Schmidt wants a trade, supposedly. Are you in on OEL? We're told today they're not. But also by the same token, can you envision what this blue line? There's going to be a lot of moving and shaking in the next 2 weeks with the D.
Yeah, and I keep coming back to the question of, like, how do they get better? Like, it's not so much for me just moving parts and, one guy in, one guy out. It's about assembling a defense core that is going to allow this team to start making progress and moving forward. And that was my great takeaway from the Stanley Cup final and watching Tampa through the playoffs and really back-to-back years is just how stacked they are on the back end, that you can have Sergachev and David Savard essentially as your third pair. The Canucks would take either one of those guys, I think, in a heartbeat. And so, we know that Quinn Hughes is going to be back, and I expect that Quinn Hughes will be better next year. I'm hoping that Jack Rathbone is now a part of this team and gets an opportunity to be everyday player, because I liked a lot of what I saw from him, but there are still so many holes. And if you turn to the same guys you've had in the past, Edler and Hamonic, really, have you upgraded your team in any significant way? I would say no to that. And then there is all of this sort of cloud of uncertainty around Nate Schmidt, and can they move him? Will they move him if he comes back and has to start the season here? Where's his head at, and sort of, what kind of player do you have? Because I still think Nate Schmidt's a better player than he showed in his first year here, but now there's questions about whether he wants to be here. Do you want a player that doesn't want to be part of your organization? So, yeah, it's already going to be a busy offseason. We knew that. There's a ton on the to-do list for Jim Benning and the Canucks front office, and now Nate Schmidt has sort of clouded some of that, just because it's one more thing that you've got to add to this list. And through it all, the general managers talked about making the playoffs. That's the stated goal. So that means being a whole lot better than they were this past season. How does he improve his hockey club? What is that defense core going to look like when they hit the ice in the fall? Your guess is as good as mine, but you know what? We're going to find out. We're sort of 3 weeks away from the expansion draft, the draft itself, and then free agency. Really, if we had this conversation in 3 weeks' time, guys, the Canucks roster for next season will essentially be shaped. So some of these decisions and discussions that we've had forever, they're coming to a head here in the next couple of weeks.
Jeff, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks so much for this. Appreciate it.
Have a great weekend.